Hi, this is Lori Moilov with the Limitless podcast, and we're all about creativity here. And I have a special guest with us. Her name is Jen Grisanti. She is an acclaimed story and career consultant. She's worked 13 years as a writing instructor for writers on the Verge at NBC and was a former 12-year studio executive, including current programming at CBS Paramount, and also a author of 3 books: Storyline, Finding Your Gold in Your Life Story, TV Writing Toolkit, How to Write a Script That Sells, and Change Your Story, Change Your Life, A Path to Your Success. Some of her career started in 92 when you started as an assistant to Aaron Spelling, and he was a mentor to you for 12 years, and you quickly climbed the ranks to current programming at Spelling. And then which covered shows such as Beverly Hills 90210, Melrose Place, and Charmed. And then in 2004, you got a promotion and was the VP of current programs at CBS Paramount, where you covered shows such as Medium, Numbers, NCIS, and Girlfriends, just to name a few. Now you are an amazing story consultant, and you've worked with over 1,000 writers specializing in television and features. And with your expertise, you've helped guide and mentor over 100 pilots that have gotten sold, including 8 that went to series and 150 writers that have gotten staffed. I just want to say how amazing that is for our fellow creative community. And I just wanted to know what kind of got you into creativity and storytelling.
I love it. Well, first of all, thank you so much for that introduction. I appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here, and I love that you are doing this show for creatives. What got me into creative? I fell in love, like many of us, with storytelling from the time I was a child, and also wasn't really sure how it was going to be a part of my life. Knew that, I loved watching the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family with my family, and knew I loved the feeling of story, and knew that I wanted to utilize my creativity in a way to find my purpose and what I love doing. So that's where it started. And then it got defined, as you mentioned in the bio, through having a mentor with Aaron Spelling for 12 years, who helped me define what direction do I want to go with creativity, and learn what it is to tell a story from a place of strength and a place of depth.
Wow. And it's kind of like it's flipped to now you're a mentor to many creatives and helping them find their spark and their creative path in writing. A lot of our listeners, they're international, so they're from all over. What are some tools maybe that maybe someone has an idea or some sort of spark, but they just don't know where to start? Like, what are some tools that maybe future storytellers could start digging into, even some of your books?
Yes, absolutely. Well, when you're thinking about story, story is the biggest word. So many people think about plot without recognizing the significance of the story as it parallels the plot. So a lot of what I work with writers on first is coming from a place of emotional truth. So understanding, how do you take these life moments that happen where we feel regret, where we feel trauma, where we feel joy, where we feel accomplishment, and how do we spin those in moments that connect us to the viewer? So a lot of what I work with writers on is, what is your story about? Why are you the perfect writer to tell the story? Why does the character want what they want? Also another why is now the perfect time in the market for this story? So I think the greatest thing to think about when you're coming up with an idea is, what is your why? And then once you identify your why, then you can dive into why the character wants what they want in the story. What is the character's flaw? What is their wound? And how can you utilize the arc of character with the childhood wound? I work with writers on a specific tool called Triangle of the Wound. So with the Triangle of the Wound, you have a childhood wound that leads to a negative narrative and a flaw, and those get in the way of the dream of the central character. Then you have a trigger event that happens before we enter the story. And then the series trigger and dilemma, if you're writing television, or the inciting incident, if you're writing film, split open both moments. So then you have this triangle that you are developing your character from. So because of the flaw that gets in the way of the dream, you want to think of a plot that will provide your character with an opportunity to heal the wound. So I'm all about emotional truth. These are arcs that happen in our own lives that we can draw from when we think about our lives and when we think about what we do to get in our own way of the dream and how we can put that into story when we write.
Yeah, wow, that's so powerful and such a truth, because I feel like as a creative, it's all about finding that connection, and a lot of that has to do with the balance of trauma, childhood traumas, and all those things, and bringing those out in the characters creates that connection to the audience. I was wondering, in just starting, like, if a lot of writers, they maybe might start with a log line or a pitch sheet or like an outline. How do, like, I guess, what's the best process for a writer to get started? They have this idea maybe, and then like formulating it out and building from there.
That is an excellent question. So I work with writers on a system of what I first have them start with is it's called Logline for your life. So a logline for your life is how you are extracting an arc in your life, and then you're going to add fiction to that arc in a fictionalized story. So you're first going to think about what has happened in my life. And I have writers use a formula, which is setup of who, create empathy. And in the logline for your life, the who is you. Mm-hmm. Dilemma, action, goal, twist of irony. And I came up with this formula as a way to have a framework of story. And I know as an executive, when I see, as a former current programming executive and as a story consultant, when I'm reading log lines, the purpose of the log line is to give me a clear view of the story. So when you start with a formula like this with a personal life log line, and it makes it easier because we all know how the sequence of events happen in our life. So when you think of these points, then you just plug in what has happened in your life and you come up with, suddenly I have writers tell me when they do the log line for your life, they have 5 more scripts to write that they didn't think about. So it's all about mining your emotional truth so that you can figure out organically where the story, the fictional story, is going to come from.
Wow. That's an amazing tool. And I know, like, some of our Limitless listeners, some of them might not have a budget or so to get a consultant at the moment. Are there some free tools that maybe just diving into their screenwriting that they can use, whether that's a script program or story program? Anything?
Absolutely. Like, I believe that information is power. So YouTube obviously is a tremendous source of information. I have a YouTube channel called Story Therapy where I interview writers as well as give a lot of free tips on story therapy and the idea of what I'm working with currently in stories. So that is definitely one free way for writers to think about. You can Google anything you have an interest in story-wise, and find something free that is going to give you information. So it is being focused, knowing what you want, knowing how to get the information, because the information is out there. I also have books, as you mentioned, Storyline, Finding Gold in Your Life Story. My most recent, I have a second edition of TV Writing Toolkit, and that's on Amazon. And that has my most recent information and story tools. So that's another thing to think about. And then I have a free webinar coming up on June 20th. I'm not sure when this is airing, but I have a free webinar called Story Therapy, Story Insights, and I'm planning to do that quarterly. So if you missed the one on June 20th, then the next one is probably going to be in October after I get back from a retreat.
Amazing. Yeah, wow.
Yes.
Like I know there's so many tools as writers, whatever scope that is. I know for me, I'm a songwriter, also write scripts. So I think it's all the mediums and as I gauge it, it's really finding the why, the underlining reasoning, and then getting that shaping that log line together and then letting those truths come out through flaws and I guess childhood traumas and triggers and things for that character is what I
Yes.
gather. So
I absolutely, and I love everything that you just said, and I think songwriting has gone to such a place where it's especially so needed right now during the pandemic, where suddenly, as you and I talked about before we got on, where nature has this significance in our lives, even more so now. Same with music and words. Like words are resonating with us at a very high level because we want to feel connected. So the why is why we connect with you when you have something to say. So that's why the why is so pivotal.
yeah, and that like is such an amazing tool. And talking about words, I usually ask each of my guests, one word that correlates with creativity. And I was wondering what your one word would be.
For me, and I love that question, for me, it would be truth. I look at creativity, and I find that anytime I've gone through anything in life that turns my world upside down, that makes me feel like I hit some type of rock bottom, that what I gravitate toward as a way to heal is truth, is understanding my truth as well as the truth of others as it applies to story. Because truth, when people are emotionally truthful, we all heal. So that's what
That was beautiful.
inspires me. Thank
Yeah,
you.
wow. And I'm just curious, what things are you currently watching that maybe can inspire some of our listeners, to see how well story is driven in whether it's a series or a feature? What are some of the things you're watching and you're like, yes, they're spot on this truth?
I am always looking for shows that teach story therapy. That is my angle of story that I have been working in. Life and Beth with Amy Schumer is definitely a show that I love because of the simplicity and the depth and what is being said with the message. So Life and Beth is an example. Borgen is a show that I binged this past weekend that I watched the first 3 seasons many years ago, and then they just put out what is season 4, but they're calling it season 1 on Netflix, called Borgen Power and Glory. And the reason that I love Borgen so much is that we learn as an audience about politics, about global issues, about environment while we're being entertained. and we go home with the characters. So there is so much to glean from watching story that has balance and a message and a significance for all of us right now. So I would say Life and Beth and Borgen are the two shows I'm obsessed with at the moment.
Wow, I'm gonna have to check out Borgen because I haven't seen it yet. So that's definitely now in my queue to watch.
Good. Adam Price is the creator, and he also wrote another brilliant show called Ride Upon a Storm, or Herrens Vihe is the Danish title, that is also brilliant. So when you find people that have this natural gift as creatives, you want to follow these people and you want to learn from these people.
And where can our listeners, our Limitless listeners, where can they come? They're truth tellers, they're storytellers, and they want to either, talk to you to get some consulting or connect somehow. Where can they go to connect with you?
They can go to my website at jengrisanti.com, and that has everything on it. And they can email me at jen@jengrisanti.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for, inspiring us, giving some tools to some of our listeners that they can use for their stories, finding their why and creating log lines with balance and character depth. And just thank you so much. And all these truths are coming, and I'm so excited for all these amazing storytellers that you've inspired today. So thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing. It's so important right now.
Yes, definitely. And everyone, just keep creative. You're limitless, and keep creating and inspiring each other, because that's where we help light the fire for others to create that spark. So thank you so much.